The good news is that for the majority of faux leathers available, you won't need anything other than your fine point blade to cut them, which means that you can cut them using any one of the Cricut machines. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. Now, a lot of the faux leathers that are available out there are actually quite thin, and they are very, very pretty. These ones I got on Amazon, and I'll leave the link down in the description. But these are lovely and thin, and they are perfect to be able to cut with any one of your machines. I've even cut this several times on my Joy. And I'll show you how to set up the right setting so that you won't have to guess every time. Now, this method that I'm going to go over can be used for so many different things. The most popular use is for the name keychains. Having made quite a few of them myself, I can see why they're really popular. I'm going to show you how to apply this method to anything that you want. So we're going to go to the Images panel, and I'm going to create a little Cricut Cutie keychain. So in the Images panel, I'm going to search for Cutie. I'm going to scroll down until I find a design that I like, select it and add it to my canvas. Once it is on my canvas, I'm going to resize it to the size that I want my keychain to roughly be. I want this to be a nice big keychain, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And of course, you can do exactly the same principle with adding in a name. So if you type in whatever name you want and then apply your offset, which is the next step. So I'm going to click on the offset button and adjust it to however wide I want the keychain to be. So I want to make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make it around 0.7 centimeters, and I'm going to click apply. Now, the nice thing about this design is that we can actually have this double-sided because it's not wording, it's just an image. So I'm going to select both of the layers by clicking on the screen and dragging over them, right-clicking and clicking duplicate. Now this creates two of the image. What I then want to do is go to the flip panel. I'm going to click flip and I'm going to flip horizontal. Now the reason for that is because I need one in the front and one at the back. And as we all know from working with iron-on and things like that, we need to make sure that if it's on the front, it is mirrored so that it lines up correctly on the back. Now we also need somewhere to join them together. Normally, what we will do is we will rotate the design so that it's horizontal, and I get that nice block perfect line by holding in the shift key on my keyboard. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to join them here at the top of their antenna. So I'm going to add in a shape, a square. I'm going to unlock the proportions so that I can make it longer than it is wide. Make it a little bit narrower to about 2 centimeters or so. And I'm going to make it around 4 centimeters or 5 centimeters long. I'm going to hover it over that section. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit so that I can see what I'm doing. As what I need to do is make sure that these two shapes, so I can move the cuties away because we don't need them for now. I'm going to select the one offset of the one cutie and I'm pressing shift on my keyboard and I'm selecting the other cutie. Now what I'm going to do is align them center vertically, and you see how it changed just a little bit, because what that does is it means that when I flip it over to stick them together, they will line up perfectly. Now I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, click, drag and select all of the layers, and I'm going to weld them together. Essentially what I've done is I've created a little space in the middle at the top for the loop, which is where our keyring will go. And now it's time to make sure that we're getting the right cut settings for our faux leather. First of all, make sure that you have the right machine selected. So if you're cutting on your Joy, make sure to change it to the Cricut Joy. I will be using my maker, so I'm going to be leaving it on that. But like I said, you can use any one of your machines. Click Make It, move them a little bit apart so that it's easier to separate them. And we can cut these out of any kind of iron-on we want. I'm going to be using a nice rainbow colored faux leather, so I'm going to be cutting the cuties probably out of some black iron-on so that it'll stand out really nicely. And when it comes to cutting our faux leather, we're going to click continue, and I'm going to show you how I get the right cut settings for this. So instead of selecting a base material, I'm going to click on the button that says browse all materials. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the material settings option, and this is where you'll be able to see all of the different pressures that you have for your different materials. So I'm going to scroll down until I get to F for faux, and I'm going to look at the different settings that we have here. So faux leather paper thin is on 183 pressure, and it's got a 2 times cut, which means that it'll cut exactly the same thing 2 times, and it uses the fine point blade. So I would recommend trying a similar setting on your Joy or your Explore to be able to cut this as well. So in the browse all settings section, I'm going to once again type in faux, and I'm going to click the little star so that it adds it to my favorites and I don't have to search for it again in the future. I'm going to select the material and click done. Now my machine knows that that is the material that it is going to cut, and we can get started and cutting that faux. So I'm going to remove the protective sheeting from my standard grip mat, take my faux leather, put my faux leather lengthways on the mat, because that is how we had it loaded in Cricut Design Space, and use my brayer to make sure that it is fully burnished onto the mat. This is also the time to think about where your design will cut. So I know that my design will be cutting here, and if those are the colors that you want included on your design, then place it there. If you want more pink, then turn it the other way around and have the pink side on the top. And now we can load it into our machines and cut our faux leather and have our iron-on cut straight after that. And as always, before we unload, we make sure to check that it has cut correctly. And you can do this by quite simply lifting up a small section of what has been cut to see if it releases properly. And if it has cut correctly, you can press the unload button. Now that we have both of our pieces cut, we can remove the faux leather from the mat. Look at how beautifully that cuts. Perfect. Perfect size. Very excited. And we can remove our iron-on. I decided to change it to white just to see what the color is going to be like. And now I'm going to weed my design. So that just means removing the excess, and it's very hard for you to see the cut lines, but I can see them relatively easily. So I'm going to grab, hold, and pull that back, and then weed on the inside as well. And there we go. Our little cutie has been weeded, and now we can see what it's going to look like. So now here is where you can iron on or use a mini press or something like that to press on your iron on. I'm going to cut this in half and get some Teflon paper just to protect it a little bit. So this is a piece of Teflon paper or Teflon sheeting, and what I like to do, especially when working with faux leather, because it melts quite easily, I like to fold it over double. I've also just taken out my pressing pillow, as it's important to protect your workspace. Our cutie is nicely lined up on our faux leather. I'm going to place the Teflon sheeting on top. My mini press is warmed up to the lowest setting. That's very important. And what we need to do is apply very little pressure and move it around quite a bit, because the faux leather doesn't like a lot of heat. So we want to try and get it stuck on with as little heat as possible. I like to rather do this a few times more than just once. And you can put this straight onto a cold tile to cool it down. So once it's cooled down, you can try and peel off the backing to see if it's ready. And it looks like it is. I like to also just double check to see that the iron-on has stuck down everywhere. I'm quite pleased with that, so I'm going to do the other side. Absolutely perfect. So now we can glue them together. You can also add on your keyring at this stage if you don't want to weed it through. So you can just roll that up, add on your keychain, and then apply your glue. Now, I normally use this clear GemChem adhesive. It may differ depending on what country you're in. E6000 is generally the most respected use of this glue. But I don't have any of that, unfortunately. So, got to work with what you have. So I'm going to apply this on one side only, leaving that section empty without any glue on it, because that's where the keychain needs to move. So I'm just going to apply some light adhesive, trying to get as close to the edges as I can. And then we can fold this over and give it a nice firm tack down. This should take a few days to fully cure, and I might leave it out in the open to air out a little bit, as it's a little bit smelly for a little while. If you want to learn more about debossing and embossing with your Cricut Maker, check out this video. Thank you so much for joining. Subscribe for more videos in the future, and remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon.